billionaire hid under the bed to test his maid's son. What the boy did next left him speechless. The wooden floor creaked softly as the billionaire lowered himself onto his elbows, inching deeper into the darkness beneath the massive bed. Dust brushed against his tailored suit, an outfit worth more than most people's annual salary, now hidden from sight. Above him, resting neatly on white sheets, sat a large brown leather bag stuffed with bundles of cash, some spilling out carelessly as if forgotten in a rush. The sight would tempt anyone, or so he believed, from under the bed. The billionaire could see only fragments of the room, the carved wooden legs of the bed, the edge of an expensive rug, and the sunlight spilling in through tall windows. His heart beat faster, not from discomfort, but anticipation. Years of wealth had taught him one bitter lesson. People showed their true nature when they believed no one was watching. Had planned this test carefully, the maid had worked in his mansion for years, quiet, punctual, never asking for more than her wages. But it wasn't her he was testing today. It was her son. The door opened gently. Small footsteps echoed across the polished floor. Hesitant, curious. The billionaire held his breath. Through the narrow gap, he saw the boy enter the room. The child couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 short, slender, with soft brown skin and tightly curled hair framing his face. He wore a simple white t-shirt and slightly worn jeans. Clothes too plain for a room this luxurious. The boy stopped. He stared at the bed, at the bag, at the money. The billionaire's fingers tightened against the floor. This is it, he thought. This is where truth reveals itself. The boy stepped closer, eyes wide, not with greed, but with confusion. He circled the bed slowly, as if afraid the money might disappear if he blinked. Then he whispered, barely audible, "That's a lot." From beneath the bed, the billionaire studied every movement. He had seen grown men lose themselves at the sight of far less. Lawyers, business partners, even family. The boy reached out. The billionaire's pulse spiked. Small fingers touched the leather bag. The child flinched, pulling his hand back as though burned. He looked around the room, then toward the door, listening. Silence. Slowly, carefully, the boy sat down on the edge of the bed. His legs didn't even reach the floor. He leaned forward, staring at the stacks of cash like they were something dangerous. "My mom cleans here," the boy murmured to himself. "She says you don't touch what isn't yours." The billionaire froze. This wasn't the reaction he expected. The boy slid off the bed and crouched, peering underneath directly toward the billionaire's hiding place. The man's breath caught in his throat. Shadows concealed him, but one wrong move and everything would be exposed. The boy's eyes scanned the darkness. Then he stood up again, shaking his head. "No, I shouldn't even be in here." He turned back to the bed, carefully pushing the loose bundles back into the bag. His small hands struggled with the weight, but he didn't give up. One by one, he gathered every scattered bill, stacking them neatly like he'd seen adults do, under the bed. The billionaire's expression shifted, from suspicion to disbelief. This wasn't part of the script. The boy tugged at the bag's handles, dragging it closer to the center of the bed so it wouldn't fall. He wiped his hands on his jeans, glanced around one last time, and whispered, "Someone could get in trouble." Then something happened that made the billionaire's chest tighten. The boy knelt beside the bed, folded his hands, and said softly, "God, please help the man who owns this money. And please help my mom. Don't let her get blamed." Silence filled the room. The billionaire lay frozen beneath the bed, staring into the darkness, his carefully built test already unraveling. He had hidden himself to expose dishonesty. Instead, he was discovering something far rarer, and the real test had only just begun. The boy stood up, slowly after his quiet prayer, as if afraid that even a sudden movement might disturb the room or the unseen weight of responsibility he felt pressing on his small shoulders. He took one last look at the bag of cash, then turned toward the door. His hand was already on the handle when he paused. From beneath the bed, the billionaire watched the boy's feet stop moving. For a moment, the man thought the child had changed his mind. Instead, the boy turned back, walked to the bedside table, and noticed something the billionaire himself had forgotten: a small golden watch placed carelessly near the lamp. Its polished surface caught the light. The boy picked it up carefully, inspecting it the way children do, with curiosity rather than desire. "This is pretty," he whispered. "But it's not mine either." He placed the watch back exactly where it had been, even aligning it neatly with the edge of the table. Then, as if following an inner rulebook invisible to anyone else, he pulled the chair closer to the bed and climbed up again. With surprising determination, he dragged the heavy bag farther from the edge, wedging it securely between the pillows so it couldn't fall. Only then did he step away. The door clicked shut behind him. Silence returned to the room, thick and heavy. Under the bed, the billionaire remained still long after the boy had left. His mind raced faster than it ever had during a hostile takeover or a market crash. This wasn't supposed to happen. The test was meant to be simple temptation, choice, truth. Yet the truth he had just witnessed was far deeper than expected. He slowly crawled out from under the bed, brushing dust from his suit, his movements unsteady, not from age, but from emotion he hadn't felt in years. He stood up, staring at the bed, at the bag, at the perfectly arranged room that now felt different, smaller, quieter, more honest. Moments later, the maid entered. She froze the second she saw him standing there. I'm sorry, sir," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "My son was waiting outside, and I only stepped away for a moment." "If he touched anything, he did," the billionaire interrupted calmly. Her face drained of color. "But," he continued, "not in the way you think." She clasped her hands together, eyes lowered. "Please, sir. If he did something wrong, punish me instead. He's just a child." The billionaire studied her, the tired lines on her face, the worn uniform, the quiet dignity she carried despite a life that had clearly given her little. For the first time, he didn't see an employee. He saw a mother. "Call him in," he said. Her breath caught. "Sir?" "Please," he repeated. She hesitated, then stepped into the hallway. "Eli," she called softly. "Come here." The boy appeared in the doorway, eyes cautious, body tense. He looked from his mother to the billionaire, then down at the floor. "Yes, sir?" he asked. The billionaire walked toward him slowly, kneeling so they were at eye level. The boy didn't step back, but he didn't step forward either. "Did you see the bag on the bed?" the billionaire asked. The boy nodded. "Yes, sir. And the money inside?" Another nod. "Yes, sir. Did you touch it?" The boy swallowed. "Only to put it back. I was scared someone else might take it. My mom could get blamed." The room went quiet. The maid gasped softly, tears forming in her eyes. "Eli." The billionaire felt something tighten in his chest. He had asked CEOs this same question in boardrooms worth millions, and they had lied without hesitation. This child hadn't. "Why didn't you take anything?" the billionaire asked gently. No one would have known. The boy looked up, confused by the question itself. "But I would have known," he said simply. "And my mom says when you do bad things, they follow you even if no one sees." The billionaire stood up slowly, turning away for a moment to compose himself. When he faced them again, his voice was steady but different. "You can go back to your room," he said to the boy. "Someone will bring you dinner." The boy nodded, then did something unexpected. He bowed his head slightly, the way he'd seen his mother do, and whispered, "Thank you, sir." As the boy left, the maid broke down completely. "I don't know what to say," she cried. "I raised him with nothing but rules and prayers. I never thought, You raised him with values, the billionaire said quietly. That's more than most people ever get. She wiped her tears, confused. Am I in trouble? No, he replied. But things are about to change. That night, the billionaire didn't sleep. He sat alone in his study, staring at the city skyline, replaying the boy's words again and again. I would have known. In a world where he had built empires on secrecy, loopholes, and calculated risk, that single sentence felt like a judgment. By morning, he had made a decision. A decision that would test not the boy, but everyone else. And when the boy returned to that room the next day, he would walk into something that would change his life forever. Morning arrived quietly. But inside the mansion, the air felt charged, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something to happen. The boy woke up early, just as he always did, folding his blanket neatly and sitting on the edge of the bed with his hands on his knees. He listened to the distant hum of the house, the soft footsteps of staff, the faint clink of dishes, the low echo of doors opening and closing. This place still didn't feel real to him. It felt like a world he was allowed to visit, but not belong to. When a staff member knocked and told him breakfast was ready, he followed silently, his small shoes barely making a sound on the polished floor. The billionaire sat at the long dining table, but not at the head as usual. Today, he chose a simple chair near the window. He wasn't reading reports or checking his phone. He was watching. The boy entered the room with his mother, who looked more nervous than ever. She kept adjusting her uniform, her eyes darting between her son and the billionaire. Good morning, sir, she said quickly. Good morning, he replied, nodding. Then he looked at the boy. Did you sleep well? Yes, sir, the boy answered. Sit, the billionaire said, gesturing to the chair across from him. The maid froze. Sir, he usually eats in the staff area. Today, he eats here. The boy looked at his mother for permission. She nodded slowly, and he sat down back straight, hands folded exactly the way he'd been taught. Breakfast was served, more food than the boy had ever seen at one time. Fresh fruit, warm bread, eggs, pancakes stacked high. The boy stared at it for a moment, unsure what to do. You can eat, the billionaire said gently. The boy picked up his fork carefully, eating slowly, politely, never taking more than he needed. The billionaire noticed everything, how the boy waited before reaching for anything, how he pushed his chair in when he stood to thank the server, how he whispered, "Excuse me," when he accidentally bumped the table. This wasn't fear. This was discipline. After breakfast, the billionaire stood. "I want to show you something," he said to the boy. "Come with me." The maid's heart began to race. "Sir, if he's in trouble." "He's not," the billionaire said calmly. "You can come too." They walked through corridors the maid had only cleaned, never truly entered. Private offices. Locked doors. A private elevator that rose silently to the top floor. When the doors opened, the boy's eyes widened. The room was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Shelves filled with awards, patents, framed photos with powerful people. In the center stood a large desk made of dark wood, spotless and intimidating. "This," the billionaire said, "is where decisions are made." The boy nodded, absorbing every detail. "Do you know what I do?" the billionaire asked. "You own companies," the boy replied. "My mom says you give jobs to many people." "That's true," the billionaire said. "But owning companies also means trusting people. And that's where things get complicated." He walked to a small table near the window and opened a drawer. Inside were several envelopes. "I test people," he continued. "Not because I enjoy it, but because power attracts the wrong kind of honesty." The maid felt her stomach tighten. "I tested you last night," he said, looking directly at the boy. The boy's face flushed. "I'm sorry if I did something wrong." "You didn't," the billionaire said quickly. "You did something rare. He handed the boy one of the envelopes. "Open it." The boy hesitated, then carefully opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. He read it silently, his brow furrowing. "I don't understand," he said softly. The maid leaned in, her breath catching when she saw the words. It was a scholarship offer. Full coverage. Private education. Housing, meals, everything. "For me?" the boy asked, looking up. "Yes," the billionaire said. "If you want it." The boy's hands trembled slightly. "But, my mom?" "She will not lose her job," the billionaire said firmly. "In fact, she's getting a new one." The maid's eyes filled with tears. "Sir, I don't have training. You have something better," he replied. "Integrity." He turned back to the boy. "But this comes with a condition." The boy stiffened. "What condition?" "You stay exactly who you are," the billionaire said. "No shortcuts. No arrogance. No forgetting where you came from." The boy nodded instantly. "I promise." The billionaire smiled faintly. "Promises are easy. Keeping them is not." He walked to his desk and pressed a button. The door opened, and several executives entered, men and women in sharp suits. Confident expressions mid-conversation until they noticed the boy and the maid. "This is Eli," the billionaire announced. "And this is his mother." The executives exchanged confused glances. "Yesterday," the billionaire continued, "this boy was given access to more cash than any of you will see this year. And he chose honesty." The room went silent. "Today," the billionaire said, his voice hardening, "I want to see which of you would do the same." One executive laughed nervously. Another shifted uncomfortably. The maid clutched her son's shoulder. "You see," the billionaire said, pacing slowly, "a child showed me what decades of experience failed to teach most adults." He stopped and looked directly at the group. "Character does not come with titles." Then he turned back to the boy. "Your test is over," he said. "Theirs is just beginning." The boy didn't fully understand the weight of those words, but he would. Because from that moment on, his presence in the billionaire's world would expose truths. No amount of money could hide. And the people who had laughed at honesty were about to learn how expensive dishonesty could be. The executives stood frozen, unsure whether they were part of a lesson, a warning, or something far more dangerous. The billionaire's gaze moved slowly across their faces, reading them the way he had learned to read balance sheets, searching for hidden risks. "Weak foundations, false confidence, everyone out," he said finally. "Except you." One man remained. Tall, well-dressed, confident to the point of arrogance. He had laughed earlier. "You," the billionaire said calmly, pointing. "Why did you laugh?" The man straightened his jacket. "Sir, no disrespect intended. I just found it unusual. A child making moral decisions under pressure isn't exactly a business metric." The billionaire nodded slowly. "Interesting answer." He turned to the boy. "Eli, do you know what this man does for the company?" The boy hesitated. "No, sir." "He oversees compliance," the billionaire said. "His job is to make sure people don't steal, cheat, or bend rules." The room went quiet. "Now tell me," the billionaire continued, his voice sharpening, "why would someone in that position find honesty amusing?" The executive's smile faded. "Sir, with all due respect." "Enough," the billionaire snapped. "You're done here." The man's face went pale. "Sir, security will escort you out. HR will handle the rest." As the man was led away, the remaining executives watched in stunned silence. This wasn't a performance. This was real. The billionaire turned back to them. "You are dismissed. I suggest you think carefully about why a child had more discipline than a room full of adults." When the door closed, the maid finally let out a shaky breath. "Sir, what did we just witness?" "Truth," the billionaire said. The kind that doesn't ask permission. He walked to the window again, hands clasped behind his back. I built everything I have by believing people could be measured by results alone. Revenue, efficiency, growth. He turned around slowly. Last night, a boy reminded me that results without values rot from the inside. The boy shifted nervously. Sir, did I do something bad to that man? No, the billionaire said firmly. You did something right. And sometimes, that's enough to expose what's wrong. Later that day, the mansion buzzed with quiet movement. Lawyers arrived. Assistants whispered. Documents were printed, signed, shredded. The maid was called into an office she had never been allowed to clean. Inside, she found a desk prepared for her. This will be your new workspace, the billionaire said. She stared at it, stunned. Sir, I don't understand. You will, he replied. You're now part of our internal ethics team. You'll observe, report, and advise. You won't need degrees, just the same honesty you taught your son. Tears streamed down her face. I've never even worked at a desk. Neither had he, the billionaire said softly, nodding toward the boy. Until life demanded it. That evening, as the sun set behind the city, the boy sat in the garden, watching the lights flicker on one by one. The billionaire joined him, sitting on a stone bench. Do you know why I hid under the bed? The billionaire asked. The boy thought for a moment. To see who people really are. When they think no one is watching? The billionaire smiled. Exactly. They sat in silence for a while. Sir? The boy asked finally. Yes? Will I still see my mom every day? The billionaire looked at him, surprised. Of course. The boy nodded, relieved. Then I'll do my best. The billionaire felt something shift inside him, something that money had never been able to buy. For the first time in years, he wasn't planning an expansion or a takeover. He was planning a future, and it all began with a child who chose honesty. When no one was supposed to be looking, the transformation did not arrive with applause or headlines. It came quietly, stitched into ordinary moments that slowly began to feel extraordinary. The boy's life did not suddenly become easy, but it became possible in ways it never had before. Each morning, he still woke before the sun. Habit, his mother always said, was the backbone of character. He folded his blanket with careful precision, just as he had done in the small room they once shared behind a crowded apartment building. Even now, in a guest room larger than their old home, he refused to let comfort erase discipline. His mother watched him from the doorway more than once, her heart tightening with pride and fear all at once. Pride, because he remained unchanged. Fear, because she knew how quickly the world tried to reshape people once money and power entered the picture. At school, the difference between him and the other children was impossible to ignore. They spoke casually about vacations, gadgets, private tutors. He listened, absorbing more than he shared. When asked why he never bragged, he answered simply, because everything I have can be taken away, but who I am cannot. Word of that sentence traveled faster than grades ever could. Teachers noticed. Not just his intelligence, but his restraint. His willingness to help others without being asked. His habit of returning borrowed items cleaner than he received them. When a classmate lost an expensive watch, the boy helped search until it was found, then quietly stepped back, refusing credit. Back at the company, his mother's presence began to change the atmosphere in ways spreadsheets never could. She didn't speak loudly in meetings. She didn't dominate conversations. She listened intently. And when she did speak, it was with the clarity of someone who had seen the consequences of dishonesty, not as numbers, but as hunger, eviction, and shame. Some executives resented her immediately. She doesn't belong here, one whispered in a hallway. She's unqualified, said another. But none of them could explain why her reports uncovered things audits had missed. Small irregularities. Patterns of convenience. Decisions that technically followed policy while quietly violating its spirit. One by one, those issues were addressed. One by one, people were exposed. The billionaire watched it all unfold without interference. He wanted to see who would adapt and who would resist. Resistance, he had learned, often revealed more than obedience ever could. Late one evening, he called the boy into his study. The room smelled of old books and polished wood. The city lights shimmered through the windows like distant stars. "Sit," the billionaire said. The boy sat, posture straight. "Do you know why people fail tests?" the billionaire asked. The boy thought carefully. "Because they think the test is about winning, not about being honest." The billionaire smiled faintly. "Exactly." He opened a drawer and removed a thin folder. Inside were photos, documents, timelines, evidence of executives who had betrayed trust over the years but were never confronted because their numbers looked good. "I ignored these once," the billionaire said quietly, "because exposing them would have cost me profit." The boy looked at the papers, then back at him. "But it would have saved people." The billionaire closed the folder slowly. "Yes, and that's the part I failed." Silence filled the room, not awkward, but heavy with understanding. "You passed a test you didn't even know you were taking," the billionaire continued. "And you didn't do it for reward. That's why the reward matters." He stood and walked to the window. "People assume wealth is inherited through blood or money. They're wrong. The most dangerous inheritance is values." The boy listened, absorbing every word. From that day forward, the boy was invited, not forced, into conversations most children would never hear. Ethics discussions. Leadership debates. Hard questions with no perfect answers. He was never asked to decide, but always asked to think. And he did. Slowly, the staff noticed something else changing. The billionaire himself. He no longer tested people out of suspicion, but out of hope. He began mentoring instead of monitoring, listening instead of commanding. When mistakes happened, he asked why before deciding what next. All because one night, under a bed, he had witnessed the kind of honesty no system could enforce. One evening, as the boy and his mother prepared to leave the office, the billionaire stopped them. "You can go home early," he said. The mother hesitated. "Sir, are you sure?" "Yes," he replied. "Family dinners matter." As they walked away, the boy turned back. "Sir, yes? Thank you for trusting us." The billionaire watched them go, a quiet smile on his face. He finally understood something success had never taught him. The greatest test of power is not how it controls others, but how it chooses to be changed by truth. Time did what money never could. It revealed who people truly were when the excitement faded and the spotlight moved on. Weeks turned into months, and the mansion that once felt cold and distant began to breathe differently. Not louder, not softer, just truer. The boy no longer felt like a visitor walking on borrowed floors. He felt like a student of life, of people, of responsibility. And the billionaire, for the first time in decades, felt like a man still learning. The final test was never meant for the boy. It was meant for the billionaire himself. One evening, after a long board meeting that left even seasoned executives drained, the billionaire remained seated long after everyone else had gone. The room was empty except for him, and the echo of words spoken hours earlier, arguments about profits, risks, and expansion plans that would bring billions more. But at a cost no spreadsheet could fully show. He called for the boy. When the boy arrived, he noticed the tension immediately. "Did something go wrong, sir?" he asked gently. The billionaire gestured to a chair. "Tell me something," he said. "If you had a choice between being powerful and being right, which would you choose?" The boy didn't answer immediately. He looked around the room, at the walls covered in achievements, at the awards that once represented victory, but now felt like reminders. "I think," the boy said slowly, "being right lasts longer. Power only works if people believe in it." The billionaire closed his eyes. That answer settled something deep inside him. The next morning, the company awoke to news no one expected. A major expansion deal, one that would have doubled profits, was canceled. Not postponed, canceled. The reason was simple. It required cutting corners that would hurt people who had no voice. Executives panicked. Shareholders demanded explanations. Advisors warned of backlash. The billionaire stood firm. "For years," he said in a recorded statement, "we measured success by what we could gain. From today onward, we will measure it by what we refuse to take." The reaction was immediate and brutal. Stock prices dipped. Media questioned his sanity. Analysts speculated about age, health, judgment. That night, alone in his study, the billionaire stared at the same city skyline he had once conquered piece by piece. Doubt crept in. Old instincts whispered that he had gone too far. Then he heard a soft knock. The boy stood at the door, holding a folded piece of paper. "My mom said you might need this," he said. The billionaire took it. It was a short note, written in simple handwriting. "Doing the right thing feels lonely at first, but it teaches others how to stand with you." The billionaire let out a long breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. In the months that followed, something unexpected happened. Clients who shared the company's new values stepped forward. Employees who had felt invisible began speaking up. Talented people who once avoided the company now applied because they believed in what it stood for. The losses recovered. Then they were surpassed. But more important than profits was the shift no report could capture: trust. The boy grew too. Not into arrogance, not into entitlement, but into awareness. He learned how easily good intentions could be corrupted, how important it was to question even those you admired. The billionaire encouraged that. "Never follow anyone blindly," he told him. "Not even me." The Maid, no longer called that by anyone who mattered, became a symbol within the company. Not of charity, but of earned respect. People sought her advice not because they were afraid, but because they knew she would tell the truth even when it was uncomfortable. 1 year after the night of the test, the billionaire invited the boy back to the same bedroom. The bed was unchanged. He crouched down and looked underneath. "Do you know why I never cleaned under here?" he asked. The boy smiled softly. "So you wouldn't forget." The billionaire nodded. "Exactly." He stood up, placing a small box on the bed. Inside was the golden watch the boy had once returned untouched. "This is yours now," the billionaire said. The boy shook his head. "Only if I've earned it." "You have," the billionaire replied. "Not because you were tested, but because you didn't change after." The boy accepted it carefully. As they left the room together, the billionaire realized something that felt almost unreal. He had hidden under the bed to test a child. But in the end, it was the child who revealed the man he was meant to become. And that was the most valuable outcome of all.